The crypto bull run is back on and it's about to go absolutely parabolic. This is exactly what we're going to do about it right now. Hello and welcome back. Trump is back in office. Bitcoin's back at all-time highs. And I'm about to explain to you why tonight I'm willing to pay more than ever before for Bitcoin and more than anyone has ever paid in the entire history of crypto for Bitcoin. Let's get right into it. So Trump took the win for President of the United States. In case you missed it, currently at 292 electoral votes. 270 to win. It is now a done deal. That is official, and markets responded in pretty much the expected way. New all-time highs on Bitcoin. As you can see, we are up about 13.6% from last night when it became clear that that was the most likely result. Of course, the way the results come out, it just gets more and more likely in one direction. But nevertheless, this was pretty much the expected result, like I say. I think it's fair to say much of the market thought that a Harris win would have been worse to the downside than a Trump win would have been good to the upside. A number of different reasons for that. The first being that as we got closer to the end of the race, Trump was the more likely candidate to win, meaning that because he was the good for crypto candidate, that upside move would have been somewhat priced in. Now, part of that upside that I spoke about before in previous videos was the fact that that is something of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if not necessarily for underlying fundamental reasons included in Trump policies, which are pro-crypto, at least part of that was simply the sentiment that Trump was the pro-crypto candidate. So you had a higher probability that Trump was going to win, meaning more of the upside was already priced in. The second reason is price movements to the upside this close to all-time highs essentially puts us closer and closer to price discovery, i.e. prices where the market has never been before. We know also partly as a combination of those last 2 points, there was a lot of leverage in the market, a lot of leveraged long positions in the market, and that kind of opens the floodgate for bigger players to bully the market to the downside to their benefit. Of course, it doesn't make sense to bully the market to the upside. It makes sense to bully the market to the downside if you're a big institution, because it means you can accumulate more Bitcoin at lower prices. But in any case, as the result became clear, markets responded very positively, and we are now up around 13.6%. Which means we've broken all-time highs. And in fact, we have broken all-time highs twice today. So as you can see, currently on Binance, Bitcoin's sitting at $75,000, pretty much exactly. Over on Coinbase, I'm looking at around about $75,000 too. This wick up to $75,800 seems to be an anomaly in the Coinbase spot chart. But in any case, all-time highs. I think a lot of people were potentially expecting an even more dramatic move to the upside after breaking through those all-time highs. And I would put that down mostly to what I've already mentioned about this move kind of being priced in as Trump was taking the lead. You got to understand that markets don't react to the end result, they react to that result happening. It's the market is so efficient, because it is an efficient market, that it's reacting to the news literally as it's happening. And that leaves you with a number of different options in situations like this. One of them is to just sit it out. One of them is to try and guess which way it's going to go and get out in front of it. And the third is to watch it like a hawk and try and see which way it's going in real time. More on that in just a second. But first, let's take a look at some other metrics. So first of all, the ETF flows. Now, really interestingly, in the last week leading up to the election, we saw some absolutely massive inflow days. I actually tweeted about this when it happened back on the 30th. BlackRock's IBIT BTC ETF passed $30 billion in total assets. And that was after a $642 million net inflow day. And of course, we had some even bigger days since then. The 30th itself was an $872 million net inflow day. 31st, a little bit smaller. The first finished out flat. The fourth, a small positive inflow. Interestingly enough, BlackRock's selling on these days. And yesterday, the 5th, was actually a small outflow. I presume we can put that down to institutions offloading some risk going into the election, perhaps not wanting to hold that risk going into an uncertain time. Interesting to note as well, save for the 29th, a lot of the buying last week was in fact on down days. Most notably, that massive $872 million inflow day was on the 30th, which on the daily chart was a down day. Looking over at liquidations last night before the result came out, there was leverage on both sides of the market. And as you could see, we had something in the region of $377 million worth of short positions liquidated. That is traders who have gone short on borrowed money getting stopped out of those positions, being forced to cover and effectively buy into the market, further accentuating that move. You can kind of see how that was played out in the charts. First, slow and steady to the upside. This looks like a spot bid appearing to me. And then as we came up through key levels in the early hours of the morning, prices started moving much quicker, and you can see a lot more volatility up here in both directions as you start to see the effects of liquidations on price. So the big question, where do we go from here? What's happening right now as we are currently at all-time highs? Bitcoin has literally never been worth more than it is worth right now, $75,700 on the Coinbase spot chart here. I think there are three potential outcomes. Number one, this is a case of buy the rumor, sell the news. Buy the rumor that Trump's going to win, sell the news that he did. I think it's quite clear that the time for that scenario has gone, so I'm not going to talk about that any further. Scenario number two, smash through all-time highs, move goes absolutely parabolic to the upside. Now, I'm also starting to think that the possibility that the time for this has gone is getting stronger, because obviously we're not at 100K yet, right? We're not at 150K yet. We're not at 200K yet. So where I'm lying is kind of somewhere between the two. First of all, from a charting perspective, I like how long we've spent up at these levels. You can see the green line here is the former all-time high. Now, although we did break that this morning, come back down again, break it again, and then kind of hovered around there this afternoon, all this time we've essentially been building value above that level. And that means that the market is, at least in the immediate term, starting to accept levels above the previous all-time high. We've not just wicked up into it and dropped straight back down below again. Now, the longer we spend up here, the better, because quite clearly, the last several times Bitcoin has made new all-time highs, results have been, let's say, disappointing, okay? Back in October 2021, in November 2021, and then of course, most recently, March 2024. The second point is simple human psychology. The longer we spend up here, the longer we spend creeping up towards $75,500, the more FOMO starts to set in. The higher the proportion of investors believing that this might be the very last chance to get into the market before it absolutely explodes. We've also got liquidations to consider. As you can see a little bit higher up the book, at around $78,000, there are $2.7 billion of short positions waiting to be liquidated. Now, the effect of short positions and a short position cascade on the market should be even more dramatic, given the last point that I just made, when we are in price discovery, because of the psychological elements of that. That, of course, does go both ways. To the downside, we are looking at $5 billion worth of long positions that we liquidated at a price of $68,700. And to contextualize that on the chart, that would pretty much be a reversal of the pump that we had on the election result coming up. Now, finally, I want to look at liquidity. So if we take a look at Bookmap, what we can see is pretty interesting. Obviously, there is more absolute liquidity at prices immediately above us than there is immediately to the downside. And that somewhat makes sense, because we are literally at all-time highs. Bitcoin has never been more expensive than it is right now. But what's interesting from this chart is there is a broader range of liquidity to the downside. And that trend seems to me to have persisted throughout the afternoon. And that constant bid bodes quite well for the continuation of this move, at least for the time being, in my opinion. That being said, the election result is fundamentally, for the time being, a bullish event for markets, a fundamental bullish event for markets. So any move to the downside could present some very nice buying opportunities. Again, as moves to the downside are likely to be overextended, particularly when there is this much leverage in the market, because there is a lot of long leverage in the market right now. But dealing with the situation right now where we see it, and I think in the immediate term, really until this micro range that we put in today is broken to the downside, I still think this is biddable, just given how historic of an event this is, given how big the Trump crypto narrative is at the moment, and given what I'm seeing in the order book aggregators right now. Invalidation for a trade like that would be the lows down here at $72,750. Any move beyond that, I would expect to extend further to the downside, and that just presents a better opportunity to get out of that and get into it lower. That is if you are into trading on short time horizons. Now, I actually scaled into a short-term position over the last week, building into this move. I'm trading over on BTCC here, and as you can see, that is a 0.4 Bitcoin position on 10x leverage with an average open price of $69,586. I opted to hold this trade going into the election, over the election night, and that was, of course, a bet on the Trump result coming out of that. But that now gives me the luxury of already being in profit on this trade. We're currently up around $2,500. And for the reasons mentioned earlier, given that I feel this is a historic break of all-time highs, I think if we are kicked back down from here, things remain bullish long-term. But I don't think that will necessarily be aggressively bullish, let's say, for the medium to immediate term. And for that reason, in this circumstance, I am willing to buy the top, and I'm about to do it right now. So we're currently in a 0.4 BTC position. I'm going to scale this up to a 1 BTC position again on 10x leverage. If we bring up the liquidation price calculator here, as you can see, 10x leverage, if we fill 1 BTC at an entry price, I'm just going to use the current price. So we'll say $76,000 and the account balance currently $15,500. That gives us a liquidation price of $63,540. Now that is sufficiently far away from where we are right now for me not to be concerned, since the invalidation for this trade is, as previously discussed, $72,760. I will be using a stop loss. I probably won't place it exactly at $72,760. All that being said as well, we are artificially inflating the entry price here because I'm already technically in this trade, so the average price is going to be lower than where we are right now. And most importantly, I am not trading with any significant proportion of the portfolio. I think that would be incredibly risky. That doesn't fit my thesis at all. So order size 0.6. I'm going to place this as a limit order, save on some fees. This is purely for entertainment purposes. There is a very, very high chance that this won't work. I would literally never recommend anyone buys an all-time high unless there's a very good reason to do so. In this case, I think this is a historic all-time high. As I say, this isn't a significant trade in terms of the portfolio size or in terms of how far I'm willing to let it go. But nonetheless, purely for entertainment purposes, not a recommendation. We're going to see where this goes. We're going to hit the bid and we are filled. And as you can see, the average price for this 1 BTC position is about $73,400, which I am very comfortable with because, as we spoke about, the invalidation for this trade, this stupid buy the top trade, which might pay off or it probably won't, is $72,660. Once again, trading on BTCC. I will include a link in the description in case you want to sign up and trade on there yourself. I'm going to set a stop loss on this. As discussed, very, very tight stop loss. Targets to the upside, well, the first for me from here would be about $80,000 because markets tend to like round numbers and the market has no data to go on in terms of what price would be accepted to the upside, because once again, Bitcoin has literally never been more expensive than it is right now. We are breaking all-time highs once again, and it feels so good to be able to say that again. As always, absolutely nothing that I say should be considered financial advice. This is just my opinion. This is just for entertainment purposes. But thank you so much for watching. What a great day it is to be in crypto, and there's plenty more to come. Catch you in the next one. Cheers.